It is true. I'm a big fan, and I love your takes. And I'll get a couple of you guys are all over this tariffs thing in a big way at the American Prospect, and you as executive editor, you ride herd over all of this. And I have to think that on one level, it is an exciting time to ride herd over the kinds of things that you have covered for so long. But it's also it's a terrifying time, you know.
Yeah, there's an old quote attributed to some executive editor of The Nation magazine, and the quote goes, "What's bad for the country is good for the nation." And I think we're in that kind of frame of mind right now with respect to the prospect.
Yeah, we're desperate for the takes that you'll get at the American Prospect, et cetera. And but sadly, that desperation comes from some
Yeah.
horribly
But look,
difficult
I
times.
mean, in the last 24 hours, really, we have seen some rays of hope, I think, in the Democratic Party, in obviously these elections in Wisconsin and Florida yesterday, in the dramatic response to Cory Booker's 25-hour peroration on the Senate floor, which may spur some more sort of efforts of resistance within the establishment of the Democratic Party, which I think is absolutely what the public wants. And with today's sort of hint that Elon Musk might be shown the door. So, you know, I think early on there was a lot of despair among Democrats that there wasn't going to be an opportunity to sort of reach some sort of understanding of how to move forward. But I think gradually that's coming together.
Yeah, early on, I think there was a sense that this is a walkover. The
Yeah.
surrender completely of the GOP, the surrender of the media, it seemed, the
Yeah.
successful harassment of legal institutions. These were all things that seemed to be proceeding unabated, and even the creation of Doge and Musk and the wrecking ball he took to government. I mean, there's the utter dismantling of government that's gone on. And again, it's completely unabated. So you can understand how one could get pretty dejected pretty quickly. And then,
Oh,
as you say,
100%.
just in the last day, we've seen, the heartbeat, right? We've seen the Democrats have something. You have Booker taking charge the way you should take charge inside the chamber, making a point and a historic point at that. And then, as you say, the Wisconsin results are indisputable. Do you look at the Wisconsin stuff and even the Florida stuff, David, where maybe these election returns, while not favoring Democrats, Democrats did better in those showings, even in Florida, than thought. What do you take from that?
I mean, you're seeing a sustained swing between 10 to 12 points, or even more in some cases, toward Democrats. Now, these are special elections. Those swings don't necessarily hold in a general election that has, a lot more interest and more people coming in. And it does seem that Democrats, with its highly educated and engaged electorate, does better these days in these special elections. So we have to keep that in check. But a 10 to 12 point swing from where we were in 2024 would mean something like 50 or 60 new House seats for Democrats. That's what that swing would translate to. So this is bad news for Republicans, and especially because it comes, Happy Liberation Day, by the way, Mark. It's and personally, I think it's getting very commercial, Liberation Day, but
You think the purity of Liberation Day
we've
has been
lost the
lost?
true meaning. We've lost the true meaning of Liberation Day. But here's the thing: all of this swing is coming before the real economic damage of Trump's policy agenda really takes hold. And I'm talking not just about tariffs and retaliatory tariffs and a trade war that is going to raise prices kind of globally around the world, but also the extreme tax cuts that are going to be funded by massive spending cuts, cuts to Medicaid, cuts to food stamps, that is going to just dramatically expand inequality in this country in ways that are socially dislocating. So, you know, the bad news that Republicans are experiencing right now is a prelude to what will continue if they keep going down the path that they're going. And so if we're talking about a 10-point swing now, is that 15 later? Is that 20 later? Are Republicans in safe Senate seats that they think are safe? Are they in trouble after that? That's what you have to ask yourself. And we'll certainly see what happens. There's going to be more special elections down the road.
And the solidarity that we've seen in the last 2 months. I mean, quiet solidarity, or even this kind of ridiculous evangelical solidarity where, you know, I want to make Donald Trump's birthday a national holiday and I want to put him on the $20 bill. It's like, now get out of my way. I want his whole family to be on American currency. It's crazy. That's kind of the evangelical side. And then I think you have these just scared in the main, the scared GOPers who just sit there on their hands. You think there'll be breaks in that solidarity as some of the stuff that you're talking about begins to happen?
I mean, potentially, and that could result. You know, we have this one big beautiful bill, right? This reconciliation bill that uses a certain process whereby you can pass something with a majority vote in the Senate, and that's where the vehicle that they want to use to make these tax cuts and then these massive spending cuts to offset the tax cuts, not to offset all of them, but that's a different story. That's where you could see some of this hedging, especially if this drags out, if it gets into the area where the 2023 elections, where you have governorships in Virginia and New Jersey, and you really start to see the impact politically of this destruction of government. That's where, you know, you could see swing seat Republicans with a tenuous hold on their particular constituencies balk at what's going on. So yeah, we could see that. And by the way, it wouldn't take too many, right? I mean, we're in a situation, once we finally get there are 2 empty seats because Democrats have died in the House. So it's right now it's 220 to 213. When it gets back to 215, which will happen in the coming months, you're talking about a 2-seat cushion. You know, if more than 2 members take a walk on the Republican side, then you can't pass a bill, and that's a big problem for them. It's why Elise Stefanik, who was going to be the UN ambassador under Trump, was yanked from that position because they thought, if we lose that special election, we could be in a situation where we have even less of a cushion in the House. Sure. So, I think that Republicans are very aware that their hold on power is tenuous, and they want to speed up that agenda to get as much done as they can until such time as the political winds catch up with them.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, everything's accelerated because they're worried. They see it, and they can see everything turning, and then they won't get anything done. One of the things they've gotten done, and I know this is important to you as well, based on stuff I've read through the years from you, the dismantling of various, even tepid regulatory structures within government, CFPB, I think, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, even within government itself, the inspectors general that have all been dismissed. These are cops on the beat that are really there to protect us Americans. And the CFPB was really doing some real work. I wonder if you could spend a moment on 2 things. A, the damage done from those things and others. And also, can Humpty Dumpty be put back together again, David? Or how long might that take to reintroduce some of these structures?
Well, what you're seeing is just the end of certain types of regulatory enforcement, particularly of corporate America, not just the financial system, which is contemplated in CFPB, but a whole host of other agencies that are just stopping enforcement. The Department of Justice, the Securities and Exchange Commission, around investor protections, just a whole host of enforcement. And what you're going to see is the American people left vulnerable to a bunch of scams. And it's interesting you bring this up, because our next print issue in June is going to be entirely about this, about what scams are we going to see if we're in this position where we're just sort of left adrift with no federal regulatory enforcement. So I think it's a big problem. As far as how it can be rebuilt, I mean, I think what's really interesting is that the plan for CFPB was to essentially eliminate it entirely. There was going to be a three-stage process. One was to get rid of these probationary employees, people who have limited sort of civil service protections that are only there for a year. The second step was to get rid of all people in the CFPB, about 1,300 employees under a reduction in force order. And then the third one was just to get rid of everybody remaining, so that you'd essentially have, and this is in declarations that have been submitted to courts, 5 people in a room. There are 5 people who are mentioned in the actual statute. Those positions have to be filled, but none of the other ones have to be filled under the theories of Russ Vought and Project 2025 and all of the people who are doing this. So that was the goal. And they were really stymied at that. An order came out last week that essentially put a preliminary injunction on any firings at CFPB, and said that statutory responsibilities, things like the consumer complaint database, where anyone can go in and complain about a financial transaction and get an answer from their bank or their financial institution within 15 days, those things have to be restored. And indeed, Russ Vought and his deputies are restoring some of those duties, or at least they're purporting to. So in terms of, is there going to be a CFPB to come back to if and when Democrats take back the White House? And the answer is yes, at least under the current situation, because there were really smart and capable people who pushed back and got a judge to agree with them that you can't just, from the perch of the executive branch, cancel an agency that was created by Congress. So I do think that there's an opportunity there. We were never going to be in a situation where, if Trump comes in, there was going to be, robust regulatory enforcement across the government, right? But if the structure is there, if the bones are still there, then that can be resurrected, and resurrected rather quickly upon a new administration coming into office.
That's great news. I mean, so by even hanging onto the skeleton of it, you're able to build it back out, potentially.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, even some of the banks and some of the financial players in the industry, they want a CFPB there for a couple of reasons. Number one, there are a handful of dishonest actors in the system and a lot of honest ones. And the honest ones don't want to have to compete with a bunch of dishonest players who are going to profit in unscrupulous ways. The second thing is that regulation is really just a way that a market gets structured. So it's either going to be regulated by the public or regulated by private industry for their own benefit. And the regulations that are made, done by the public, that are kind of neutral, are ones that actually are required for markets to function. So CFPB puts out a particular set of tables that explains what the interest rates are. They aggregate information across the country and tell you what the average interest rate on the mortgage is. And that information is really critical to mortgage markets to know how to pin their particular offerings and to know how competition is happening in the market. And so when CFPB was initially destroyed, the banking industry went to Russ Vought and said, "Hey, you're going to publish that weekly thing, because the mortgages fluctuate, the rates fluctuate over time. You're going to publish that, right? Because otherwise, we're going to see a seizure in the mortgage market. We're going to see no mortgage activity happen." And so reluctantly, Russ Vought realized, oh, I guess I have to publish this average price offer rate, is what it's called, the mortgage table. And that's an example of regulation is actually necessary for markets to function. And I think that that's what the Trump team is figuring out. and it's to the benefit of those of us who want to see a strong cop on the beat for protecting consumers.
It's wild to watch the Trump team defend things that they know are indefensible, the tariffs among them. I mean, to hear Lutnick explain inflation and somehow sidestep the effects of tariffs. And I mean, we ran it last week. It was just like the pretzel logic was, I mean, he sounded like a madman. And he's obviously a smart guy. You know, he's just trying, he knows this is BS, but he's trying to, you know, work in these circuitous explanations while also, you know, mentioning Trump
I mean,
in
they're
a
all
positive
trying
way,
to,
et cetera. Yeah.
I think they're trying to calm the markets, calm the stock market, and also, you know, trying to basically pitch the president
Exactly.
and move him in particular ways. But, you know, I mean, it really, when you look at this tariff agenda, you know, I think we need to be very clear that these aren't really tariffs. I think the better way to think of them is as economic sanctions, that Trump is putting unilateral sanctions on every country in the world and then coming to them and say, hey, if you want to get rid of these sanctions, you got to talk to me and you got to give me something. So it's really more like when a mob boss comes into a particular community and says, hey, I'm running this street now, and you better give me some protection money or else you're going to have problems with your business. And that's what this is like. There's no sort of overarching kind of strategic idea about bringing industry back to the United States. It's just sanctions, and it's just this sort of mob-like tendency to want to break some legs and then ask for protection money so you don't get your legs broken again. That's what this is about.
And such a good explanation, and that's exactly, you know, it's funny, these tariffs, typically, or any kind of trade agreement, is forged over months and months of diplomatic exercises, right, David? I mean, this is not this kind of fiat from one guy. I understand he's president, but it's just, he doesn't even, from what I can tell and reading all morning, he's not even clear on what the tariffs are going to be at 4 o'clock this afternoon. I mean, he could literally make it up in the moment.
I guess we're a half hour away from that. And,
oh, right, exactly. Yeah.
You know, I haven't seen a whole lot on what exactly is going to transpire, but I think that if the incoherence, as you talk about, is what's creating this massive drive in economic uncertainty, and that is pretty bad for economies generally. When a business wants to plan out their system for the rest of the year, and they're looking at their costs and they're looking at what their estimated sales are. If they don't know if their input cost is going to be X or X plus 20% because there's some kind of tariff on it, and it changes from day to day, they can't invest. They can't make decisions on the business. They're essentially paralyzed. And that's what we're seeing across the economy. I've seen reports from, Federal Reserve banks and other, analysts that look at the economy, and that's the overarching problem right now is this uncertainty. And I don't know that what we're going to get in a half hour is going to give any clarity on that, really. And if it doesn't, then it creates this same kind of vicious economic cycle. The other thing working against Trump, of course, is that tariffs now have been successfully branded as taxes in the public mind. Doing wholesale across the board tariffs actually does create that tendency. If you do targeted tariffs and like Biden did, and pair them with investments in the types of manufacturing that you want to see, or the types of domestic industry, the types of domestic investments you want to see, these can work. But massive across the board tariffs are going to raise the price level, and people's expectations of inflation have gone through the roof. So they're the highest in years. And what happens in an economy is inflation expectations often become inflation reality. Because if you're a business and you see, my consumers next year think that prices are going to go up 5%. I'm going to put prices up 5% because that's what they're expecting anyway. So I might as well, move to where my customers are. And that's how you get inflation often. It's this vicious spiral upward. And that should really worry the Trump team, that they have bungled this message to the degree that everyone expects prices to go way up. And that can be a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I love that you mentioned the psychological aspect, because it's a real thing in economics that, as you say, that spiral can really happen. Hey, I'm running out of time, and I just wanted to mention a great piece that you did, and it's sort of related to what we're talking about, which is the monopolies and monopolization of mortgages, and you do something in American Pie. Just give us a preview, and then I'll link to it at the bottom of this video.
Oh, terrific. So the CFPB, in addition to trying to fire a bunch of people and stopping enforcement, stopping various activities that it's constitutionally required, or not constitutionally, but statutorily required to do, Russ Vought he dropped a case against a company called Rocket Mortgage. And the case was involving Rocket Mortgage illegally steering brokers and saying, hey, if you want to work with us, you have to push our products, and you have to not give information to borrowers who aren't signed up with us about other mortgage products that might be more competitive or better for their particular situation. And so last December, CFPB filed suit. They had documentary evidence. They had literally documents from Rocket Mortgage going out and saying, you are not allowed to steer any business away from Rocket Mortgage. I mean, it's pretty black and white. What Russ Vought does is he drops this case. He basically dismisses the case. He says, we're not going to pursue it any longer. Within days of that, Rocket Mortgage buys Redfin, which is a sort of online sales search engine and brokerage. And then just this week, it bought a company called Mr. Cooper, which is a mortgage servicing company. And what Rocket is doing is trying to create a sort of end-to-end distribution on mortgages. Through Redfin, you'll see a house. That's a Rocket company. You will then get referred into brokers who have to push Rocket mortgages. You'll get a Rocket mortgage. There are closing costs, obviously, affiliated with the mortgage. It's a closing. Rocket has closing materials. And then when you have to do the day-to-day kind of monthly payments and everything, they'll have a servicer available to do the monthly payments too. So the lack of enforcement actually gave the green light for Rocket to create a vertically integrated business that kind of shepherds you through every step of the mortgage process. And it's kind of been blessed as legal by the dropping of this case by CFPB. And the result is going to be higher mortgages for everybody, higher mortgage prices, higher closing costs, and lack of competition and choice, which is going to lead to the same thing.
Sure, you have one company controlling it all. Absolutely insane. Great piece by David Dayen in the American Prospect. We'll link to it under this video. And some love for you. Jane O says, great guest. Thank you, MTS. Yes, I knew you'd love David. So come back and visit again. Will you please, David Dayen?
Yeah, we'll do it again soon. Thanks a lot.
I'd love it. Okay,
Thanks,
the American Prospect. We'll look forward to reading your stuff. David Dayen, everybody.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.